Welcome to Proudly Asian, a podcast series that tells bold and proud stories of Asians by Asians. I'm Isabel Wong, a financial journalist who wants to uncover the many Asian stories around us that are waiting to be told. There's never just one way to look at Asians. This podcast will take you through a deep dive into the life stories, struggles, and triumphs of young Asians around the world. On today's episode, we have Sarinya Srisakul, a Thai-American firefighter who is also New York's first Asian-American female firefighter. When she's not at the New York Fire Department, she's the founder of community group Angry Asian Women. She talks to us about her career in firefighting and how she keeps women safe in New York. Welcome back to Proudly Asian. Well, for this episode, I'm so glad to bring in Sarinya all the way from New York on the show. Welcome to Proudly Asian, Sarinya. How are you?
I'm good. We are an extreme time difference, so it's evening, nighttime where I am. It's morning where you are. So I'm winding down for the day, but I'm very excited to talk to you today.
I'm so glad that you still managed to join us, even it's 9:30 p.m. on your end, and the day is just starting on my end, and always a good conversation is better than a cup of coffee for me, so I'm so glad that I'm having this conversation with you. So to get started, for our listeners who would like to know a little bit more about you, why don't we start with talking about, your background. Who are you? What are you? And where did you grow up?
So I am a daughter of two Thai immigrants, and I grew up in the suburbs of New York City. And eventually I moved to New York City and have been there for quite some time, like 25 years. And through a very weird story, I became a firefighter after many other jobs, but I've been in the fire department for 17 years, almost 18, so it's been quite some time. And I am the founder of this group called Angry Asian Women, and we mail out and give out free self-defense kits to Asian Pacific Islander women and femmes, primarily in New York City.
It's amazing because for your day job and also for the work that you do outside your day job, you're also all about keeping people safe. So it's incredible. We're definitely going to get into both sides of what you do later on in the conversation. But just as a follow-up question of you growing up as a Thai American in New York, were there some of the defining moments in life that would kind of influence the decisions that you make later in life? Were there such moments?
I think I had a very similar experience to other children of immigrants in this country of navigating two different worlds, like the Thai immigrant world and the Thai family, and the English speaking like world of like school and things like that. And also being Thai, there's not very many Thai immigrants, at least when I was growing up. But we had a little small like Thai community. So I went to Thai temple, Thai school, things like that growing up. It was a very big part of our lives. I grew up in a town with very few Asian people. And so one experience that sticks out to me of like one of the first instances of racism that I experienced was when I was in kindergarten. Our teacher assumed that we didn't speak English because we were Asian and probably like shy too, because it was our first experiences like being in a school and things like that. So I was put into, it was called ESL, like in the 80s, English as a second language. And I was such a like showboater. They had like these flashcards and I was like, apple, orange. I was like, I'm smarter than any of you people who don't know how to speak English. But like, I didn't realize until like I was much older. My mom didn't even know that we were put into ESL. And I told her, like, when I was in high school, I told her, and she was like so pissed off because, you know, we grew up speaking English. There was no reason for us to be placed in that. And same, like, I have, like, my parents have very, like, thick accents when they speak English. Another core memory of just like my mom speaking to like school administrators, and because of her accent the woman on the other line be like, I can't understand her, she doesn't speak English. And that, like, my mom was a nurse, so she spoke English really well. It was just not, she didn't have like an American accent, but
Mm.
she was fine to understand, you know. So those were the things that really, like, you know, I feel like maybe other people have also had the same experiences that I did, you know, with that, of being othered as, like, as soon as, like, you're born, you know.
And I find it so fascinating. Some Americans that I come across, they would always describe themselves as not having an accent. But then, you know, to someone who grew up outside America, I'll be like, what do you mean you don't have an accent? So it's just like there's always that thinking of like, oh, American is the accent without accent. So it's a bit, I don't know, it just sounds a bit funny to me.
Yeah, I think it's like a privileged thing for them to say, because it's like, obviously it's an American accent, you know? And
Yeah.
there's so many regional American accents. I feel like I have like a very like Northeast accent, but, you know, that's silly that people think they don't have an accent. Everyone has one.
Yeah, and also I think for a lot of our listeners or even guests who grew up outside America, you know, some of them grew up in Australia and the UK. I think that English as a second language example would resonate with them as well. Here's a question about your career choice later on in life. Obviously, you have done incredible achievements and you are the first Asian American female firefighter in New York City and also the first Asian woman to hold the position of New York Fire Department lieutenant. When did you have the idea that a career as a firefighter was for you, while back then in early 2000s there were so few female firefighters,
Yeah.
and even to this day there are still less than 10% of female firefighters in the US?
Yeah, it's like the national average is 4%. In New
Mm.
York City, it's barely 1%. It's like a little bit over 1% in New York City. And when I applied, there were 25 women out of like almost 11,000, which was kind of nuts. That was that low. But so my weird story is, I was always an outside, you know, I think, you know, felt like an outsider, like growing up, and like my coping mechanism was always to just be like different. So like when I was high school, I just always like dress like different, like grungy or punk or whatever. And I always just wanted to be different. So when I graduated high school, into art school. You know, art was a big passion of mine. And then I did that for a couple of years. And you know what really changed my life was the first time I got arrested. I went to a protest with a friend of mine from school. I don't know if you all remember Amadou Diallo. He was an African immigrant in the Bronx who cops stopped him, and he took his wallet out to show his ID. And the cops thought it was a gun. They like shot him 41 times. And it was a very controversial time. And the cops, who, there was like four of them, um, were found not guilty. And so that was like the first really big like protest I went to, like as a young adult. I was like 19 at the time. And it was one of the craziest protests I've been to in my life. I've been to many protests. And I was leaving to go back home to finish my homework. And I was in the way of like a cop arresting someone else. I was just walking the sidewalk, and he just, at the time, Giuliani was our mayor. And we had a like saying for Giuliani during that time, which was like, it's Giuliani time, which is like any like time you went to a protest or anything like that, you had a very good chance of getting arrested and getting processed like through the system, meaning that like the standard now is you get a desk appearance ticket, you go to jail like in a local precinct for a few hours, and then you get let go because it's just protesting. But like like under Giuliani, he like made illegally made protesters get processed 24 hours to go see like a judge and this and that. So very different than just like getting a ticket to come back. So that really like changed my like worldview because I was in art school, people were doing drugs left and right, and then I go to jail and I see like poor people getting incarcerated for a lot of the same behavior me and my friends are doing. And it just like I was like, what am I doing in art school? And it really like changed my trajectory. And I was like, I go to a very expensive school. I'm not going to draw like pictures for the rest of my life for no reason, for magazines and whatever. It's like crap I don't care about. Like I dropped out of school, like that made that like, like set me on a path of activism. So I became a community organizer after that. But I was young at the time. I was like I was 20 and 9/11 happened. I was like, still 20 when 9/11 happened. And that was like huge, changed everything. And including funding for what I knew to do, which was art and nonprofit work, organizing work. I couldn't find a job. And I was unemployed for a long time. My friend who I went to college with took me to like an orientation that the fire department was having. And it wasn't even on my radar at all. And I didn't know it at the time. 343 firefighters died that day at 9/11, and hundreds more retired due to injuries. So it was a really devastating time in the fire department. And so like they were like ramping up hiring. I didn't know this. I just like kind of was just like following my friend. I went to the presentation that they had in fire department headquarters, and it was just really exciting to me. I saw it was really like not that big of like a corny like PowerPoint and a video, but I was like, this is amazing. Like I want to do this. This is so cool. And there were women there. And I looked at them and I was like, they look like regular women. They don't look any different than me. And that was really just like, wow, like there were women smaller than me, shorter than me there. And I was like, oh, she can do it. I can do it too. And that's like, I wanted to help people. I wanted to, have like an actually decent job with benefits and good pay, which I wasn't on that path in the nonprofit world. In the US, you get paid really poorly if you choose to do that work, unless you're like an executive director. But if you're like an underling, like I was at the time, it's like poverty wages. So like the fire department was a huge step up for me. So I actually became a bike messenger, just for a job for the meantime, while I was waiting to like training for the fire department, waiting to get called. And even being a bike messenger was really like amazing for me because I got to learn New York City really well, and I made really good friends, and I actually organized with the bike messengers too. And I became the head of the Bike Messenger Association when I was a bike messenger. It was a really great time. And I became a firefighter, and very different world of entering the fire department as a woman, as an Asian person, not very many Asian men either. So it's very, at the time, like over 90% white cis male and Republican. So it was like totally like different world.
Wow. And just as a follow-up question, was the selection process and the training that followed after you were accepted, was it hard? Did you face any sort of, maybe given the majority of the people were white male and Republican, did you face any sort of maybe discrimination or any of such instance during your training?
Like when I was with the men, I had like really short hair. I was like butch back then. So they all thought I was a man. So I was kind of like blended in. But I was in this training program with this group that I was the president of, like later on, called the United Women Firefighters. And that training was amazing to me because it was all women firefighter like trainers and women firefighter candidates, and we all like did it together. We all like cheered each other on. It was like this super like feminist environment. And it was like a lot of the amazingness of that's the specialness of being in that space. I try to recreate with Angry Asian Women, so those are kind of like my roots of like how I saw the world, how I saw it was so important for us to have just space for ourselves to not feel judged
Mm.
or feel like we're not doing it the right way, like the freedom to fail in front of each other and to like just get it right eventually. It's just such a like great thing to like have with any industry, but especially the male dominated ones. It's really important for us to just support one another and to have that like space to do that.
Yeah.
So I really loved that training, and it was like my bubble was like burst once I entered Fire Academy, because it was the opposite of that. It was very competitive. It was very like, belong here. Like it was very difficult and challenging. But yeah, I think it's just I have a screw loose or something. That's why I kept doing it for like such a long time. Like it's been a long time. I didn't quit. Like
So, for our listeners who aren't familiar with the job, walk us through what's a day in the life of a firefighter like?
I mean, I think the best part about being a firefighter is that every day is different. Because, there's no routine day, like, but typically, we work 24 hours in New York City. Um, and so you either come in the morning or you come in the evenings. Like our tour starts like 8 a.m. ish or like 5 p.m. ish, and you're there like for 24 hours. Usually, sometimes it's like you have overtime or this and that. So it is long hours. You work weekends, you work holidays. But yeah, usually you come in and either start of either tour, the day tour, the night tour. You come in, you change into your uniform in the locker room. You go downstairs, you kind of like socialize a little bit, have some coffee, and then you check the rig, you check the tools, you check the air, because that's really important. But while you're doing all this stuff, you could like get a run. You could get a call, like even when you're just walking in the door, or if you're just like in the middle of changing, it's like, oh, they got to run. Let me try to relieve someone, because you can't leave there until someone else, another body comes to you and so like, all right, do you want to leave? We'll switch, So it's in the change. We call it the change of tours. It could be chaos because there's people leaving, keep people coming. You don't know. So yeah, so the main parts of the day, you're checking the rig for the tools, the air, you're cleaning the house. You do a roll call, like I think that's typical for every paramilitary job, is like, you see like who you're working with for the day. Your officer talks to you, like, this is what we're gonna do today, or what do you guys want to do today? We might drill is like, we'll do like a practice scenario, or let's say like something's gonna happen. Let's say it's storm's coming. It's like, all right, let's practice doing this that's related to the storm that's coming. Or like, oh, there's like you probably don't know, but there was like a really big fire last week. It was like a very crazy rescue that they did off a rope. So something like noteworthy like that, let's go over the rope, like things like that, like, news, information exchange, things like that. And then your day, depending on where you're working, is either really crazy or not as crazy, but it all depends on what it is. You can have like a holiday day with like, people really aren't like doing much. People are staying at home. Could be Thanksgiving here in America. It's like a big cooking day. So people will burn their food and their neighbors will call and be like, I smell a fire. So it's like, we're actually busy on Thanksgiving because of that. Or like Hurricane Sandy was like a big, we called it a superstorm, where the water like came up and it like came up, like drowned a lot of like buildings and stuff like that, and it affected our power. So when I worked that week, it was crazy. It was just nonstop, no break. just runs. Like there was a backlog. Like as soon as we were available, we got another run. It was just like probably one of the most insane weeks of my career. But yeah, like in a nutshell, like you can go to like EMS calls, which are medical calls, people who are like sick, car accidents, alarms ringing where it's not even a fire, gas leaks, stuck elevators. It's all weird, different little emergencies that the fire department goes to. Overcrowding, like at clubs at night. We actually do that too. So like, and depending on the district you work in, it's like you'll have more of some runs than the others. So like I came from the East Village. I worked there for 14 years. So there's a lot of dorms there. So we went to a lot of calls with drunk like kids from NYU because their dorm policy was to call 911 because they were underage and they wouldn't just let them sleep it off. They would have to go to the ER. So we had a lot of calls like that. But then when I went to Queens, I never went to a call like that. It's just
Wow.
like depends on the neighborhood. Working in Queens, I go to a lot of accidents on the highway, and I didn't really do that in Manhattan. So it's just all like your expertise, like is different, like based on like where you work. It's very
Wow.
interesting. You get to
Yeah.
learn. You keep learning, all the time.
Yeah, I mean, what you just mentioned there, it's clearly not just fire that you guys deal with. It's a lot of different situations that not all training could prepare you for. And then you guys, it just all comes down to all the situation awareness and experience that you guys accumulate over the years. But tell us about some of the most unforgettable or craziest moments. I mean, you did mention a few there, but
Yeah.
what are some of the moments that you can't forget during your career so far?
Yeah, I mean, Hurricane Sandy, I have to mention that again. That was crazy. It was crazy because we lost electricity for a week in Manhattan. So that meant no heat, no cell service. Um, People didn't evacuate. So that was the majority of what we were doing was carrying people down who were like on a high floor, carrying them down to safety. Um, it was just the chaos, and I saw like the first day after like the initial storm. I didn't work the night of the storm. The night of the storm was also nuts because like there was a huge explosion at the substation that like gave us electricity. And there were like people were riding jet skis on the street because like there was so much water. It was just like insanity. And the next day, we're just so busy and it was so much traffic because people were like joyriding just to see in Manhattan without lights. And it really impeded what we were trying to do, which was like help people. And it's like funny because it's like, you lose electricity and then people like lose their minds. It's like, I don't know, like some kind of horror movie or something. And like we kept smelling a fire, like oh, there's a fire somewhere, like there's the building's burning somewhere. And then we kept riding around. It was these like yuppies had like a bonfire and they were like drinking beers like in front of their like building. And they were like, we still have like rules. It was out of lights. You're not allowed to like have a bonfire in the middle of the street and drink like alcohol openly on the street, like just because there's no lights. But yeah, so that was insane. And honestly, COVID was crazy. I saw people die every day, like at the height of COVID. Like that was just difficult for us because we had no idea what to expect. Every day we watched like the governor do his like briefing and we still were like totally clueless about like how this thing spread. We were changing a lot of our protocols and we're trying to be like as like isolated as we could, but we like New York City had a lockdown and we're like one of the few workers that were like had to go to work still. And it was just such a crazy time still. But like the height was really bad in New York City. And then fast forward to last year, we had like a vaccine mandate, and this I don't know if the Asian listeners know about this, but it's very controversial in America. Like a lot of people uh like don't believe in getting the vaccine. And so when our mayor made a mandate, probably one of the most divisive times in the fire department that I've ever seen, of just like people, so many people stopped coming to work and stopped getting a paycheck over protesting not getting the vaccine. But those of us who did get vaccinated were forced to work their tours, so we were working crazy overtime. um and they were protesting, firehouses were getting shut down, and there were like a lot of major historic fires at the time. Very low morale with people, because it's like people you have like my job, we have like relationships for like decades. Like I've known a lot of people for like 20 years, as candidates, like going through the process. I know these people a long time, and it's like, oh, we disagree on this. Like who would have thought, like, because join this job knowing this stuff, but we very much disagree with this. And it's like fractured like friendships and relationships at work. It's gotten better now, but it's just it was a wild ride.
Yeah.
Like American politics is crazy how it affects like us on an individual level,
Yeah.
you know?
It's actually crazy to think how COVID, all aspects about COVID at the start, no matter where you are, it just sparked a lot of different debates, from whether or not you should wear a mask, whether COVID was real. I still remember all those debates happened just left, right, and center, online, offline, everywhere. It's just crazy to think that was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But also, another aspect to working as a firefighter as a female is that I know last year a report came out about allegations of abuse reported by female firefighters at the LA Fire Department. I just want to know, when that report came out, obviously you spoke to the media about the incident, right? But how did that make you feel? And are fire departments in the US still a challenging environment for some female firefighters?
When I first heard, this is so sad, but I'm not surprised. Any allegation we hear, it's like, yeah, that happened. Like, like, it's not out there to like believe it. It's happened to most of us. So, yeah, like it still happens in New York City. Like we just had a hearing at our city council in New York City about increasing diversity, and a lot of people testified about the abuses that they faced at work, and they were young firefighters. We had a young woman who talked about getting sexually harassed, and there was a video of it because it happened in fire academy, and the fire commissioner showed it to her captain, and another captain for some reason didn't tell her about it, didn't show her. It's just like so disrespectful. We have a lot of women who aren't in the firehouse right now because of they're trying to escape like the abuses they're facing at work. I do want to preface this with saying that it's not everywhere, so but it's like the Me Too movement. It's like how men are like, well, not all men. It's like, well, it's the system of like, that the men don't get in trouble for doing things like this. That's like what the problem is, because it happens like in any industry. We're just like such a super minority that it's very like highlighted when it happens to us. And we work like 24 hours together. We work long hours together, and we're, in crazy situations together. So it is like a little bit different than other lines of work. But it's, the other part about like this world of why it's difficult, very few people like will speak out about it. People will get abused and not say anything. I talked to a woman in San Francisco, oh man, and she had a guy piss in her bunk, and that's really bad. And I'm like, listen, I have national lawyers that'll work with you. Like, you have to sue. Like, it's just, and she was like so fearful and said, and mind you, San Francisco has like a ton of women. Like, they have like 15% women there, like more than New York City. You see women all the time in San Francisco. And she was like, I have 7 years left to my career. I'm just going to ride it out. And they wrote her up because they said that she brought her dog to work, and they're like, oh, the dog did it. It was like a guy did it. And it wasn't just that, it was like a million other things she kept her mouth closed about that were happened. And it was the piss that was just like, all right, I'm gonna file a complaint now. And same thing, like I said, like, it's like you file a complaint and just go anywhere, like, nothing happens to the perpetrator, and it like takes the sales out, not just of you, of the other women who you talk to. So they're like, oh, that happened to her. I'm not going to file a complaint because what's the point? It's a waste of time. It's a lot of mental stress to do something like that. So I'm just going to keep quiet. So that's like the disturbing part, is like people who are vocal, like me and like my friends who are vocal, like we're like pariahs, man. Like, nobody wants to hang out with us because we're like the killjoys, So it is what it is, because you have to like say something, and you have to like keep these people accountable and the fire department accountable, because like, the more you do that, like, the more these things will get fixed. But when you're a whistleblower, it's just not fun. It's just like when you see movies about people who do this stuff, it's like, oh, like, good for her, like, she's such a hero. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, man, like, nobody wants to sit with you at lunch. You get ostracized. It's just like, man, it's hard, and if other people see that, they're like, yeah, I'm not gonna say anything. So it's really just like, it's very toxic.
Well, first of all, I just really want to thank you for the work that you do as a firefighter, and also as an advocate, as an ally to those who went through harassment on their jobs. It's really not easy to speak out. And whenever you try to speak out for other people, especially as a female, there will always be people who will say, oh, chill out. Why are you so angry, woman? And next up, I would like to talk about your work with angry Asian women, right? Because as long as these things are still happening to us, we still gotta stay angry. I mean, we can't chill out because these things are happening to us.
Yes.
So obviously, you started this New York based community group called Angry Asian Women after the spa shooting that killed 8 people, with 6 of those women of Asian descent.
Yeah.
That happened during 2021, during the pandemic, when hate crimes against Asians were skyrocketing. Tell us about Angry Asian Women. How did that come about? And what do you hope to achieve with this initiative, with this community?
Yeah, so like you said, well, the group didn't officially start at the spa shootings, but I just started doing it on my own because I got like jumped on the street like 10 years ago. I just like bought my apartment in Jackson Heights, and it was like a couple months that like I just moved there, and I was walking home from the train, and this guy was hiding like in the shadows. It was at night. He was like hiding like in a school playground. Like, I totally didn't see him. I walked past him and had like a tote bag, and he like grabbed like the straps and pulled them towards him. I was like, what the hell is going on? Is this like my friend or something that's like playing a joke on me? And I turn around and he starts choking me. And I was like, it took me like a solid like 2 seconds to understand what the hell was going on. I was like, what's going on? I was just fighting with him, like trying to get him off. I was like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, he's attacking me. And then like I took a self-defense class, and the first thing they taught us was to say no, like really loudly. And then like my reptile brain was like, no, like really loud. And he like looked at me like, and like ran away. And I'm like psychotic, so I like ran after him. But I ran after him and totally lost him at Roosevelt Avenue, which is like a busy like avenue with the train and stuff. Like disappeared. flagged the cops to like help me, and they totally weren't very helpful at all. And so, like, I survived that experience unscathed, and I was totally afraid of leaving my house. I couldn't walk down that block for like years. Like, I was so, my friend had to like take the train from Brooklyn like over an hour to come to my house just and talk to me because I was so frazzled. I know what that sense of like losing your safety felt like, and I felt every Asian woman in United States like have that feeling after the spa shooting. And I was just like, I have to do something. And so I like made videos, and I started just like from my personal account, like mailing out these like self-defense kits. Cause cause I really felt like you might not use it, but it'll help you with your mental like state of mind. Like, it'll just like help you go outside, or like, like make you feel better. So I did that, petered out at the end of the year. Then this year, earlier this year in January, Michelle Go gets pushed on the tracks in Times Square. If you haven't watched it, for New Yorkers who are listening to this, I made a subway safety video from my experiences of being a firefighter and learning how to work on the tracks, of like just different safety things that you might not know, like in a subway station in New York City. And then a month later, Christina Yuna Lee dies. And that broke my heart because she took the cab home. She took a cab home. Like, she saw what happened to Michelle. She was like, I'm going to take a cab home. And she still gets murdered in her apartment. That really, both instances, like, gutted me. But that was just like, man, she tried. She really freaking tried. And to, like, get so brutally murdered. So, for us in New York City, that was just like shocking. And that's when I was like, I'll do it for free. Like, I had leftovers from the year before. I was like, any Asian woman in New York City, like, you get one for free. And it like blew up. And it went viral. And then it like went beyond like my Instagram. And I was just posting about that. I was like, oh, this has to get off my Instagram because I can't post about my dog. Like, I'm just like talking about self-defense. So I like, and then I had so many people helping me. It wasn't just me, and I wanted to give them credit too, because the first like order like was 500. The second order was 500. I wasn't going to do that by myself. I had a ton of people helping me. And then we like at the year anniversary of the spa shootings in Atlanta, there was a vigil at Washington Square Park, and we like did giveaways at the park, and I was with a bunch of like people there helping me as well. So I wanted to just like be like, all right, this is like a group of people doing this. I also wanted to the kits, they were very like self-defense oriented in the beginning, but now, like I was talking about like the mental health aspect. So I wanted to like put like mental health resources in there. So we have like a resource sheet with like mental health resources. We have stress tea and Asian candies, and these like strips. They're called like calm strips from this like really cool company. Mm. It's like a sticker that's like has like texture on it, and you can put it on your like cell phone if you're like fidgeting because you're like nervous or anxious. It like helps you like calm down. So the kits kept improving as time went on. Unfortunately, people still get assaulted. Asian Pacific Islander women and femmes still get assaulted. I get messages all the time from people. Like, they're just not as high profile. They're not in the news, and they're not reported, but it happens still. And it's like, it's sad that this is like necessary to have, but it's also like beautiful that like we've come together as a community to take care of one another at the same time.
Whenever the two brutal murders that happened in New York were mentioned, I still can't help but getting a bit teary, because that is something that happens in New York, but it also happens everywhere else, in the US, outside the US. And we are just talking about going out. Like, we are even scared of going out. And they have to make their transportation and outfit decisions based on whether or not they will be safe and at what time that they go out. They are always looking over their shoulders, and, some of them even keep their hands in their pockets just in case, anything happened to them. They can grab, some sort of keys and something. So what you're doing there about raising awareness on safety for women in New York City is definitely very important. And I'm so thankful that there are people like yourself out there doing this to try to keep women safe and watch out for each other. And so far, you have handed out over 3,000 self-defense kits.
Yeah.
That's a great milestone and achievement. And
mostly through the mail too, which is like crazy. But like, it's important that we utilize the mail because people in New York work crazy hours and not everyone can show up to an event where you're giving them out. So like, it was really important for me to like, meet people where they were, like through the mail.
And you also briefly mentioned what comes in a defense kit, but I know there are a few specific items that are specifically for self-defense purposes. I'm just wondering if you can walk us through what they are and what can one do with them.
Sure. Yeah. So the first items came from my experiences of like yelling like really loudly at my perpetrator and him like running away. Very loud. And so I was like thinking, I was like, well, like some people might not be as loud as me and they might need assistance. So this is like the first thing is an alarm, personal alarm, super loud. And it comes with a light. Right. So, and there's like a little like watch battery in this. So I was like, well, like what if it dies or something? So there's like a whistle that comes too. That's also really loud. I won't blow it. So those are the two like loud elements. And the other thing I give away are Kubotons. And this is like a self-defense device also from my experiences of fighting off my perpetrator. For people who are smaller, it will give you like an advantage when you're like, so you use it by, there's like a little flat part. It's like blurry, but you put your thumb on the flat part, and you put your hand out like this with your thumb down, and you basically like make an X like with it too. So you like, put your hand out to like, create distance and, but yeah, like, it's just like you said, like people who put their hands on their keys to put the keys between their knuckles. It's just like a very small, lightweight thing that's inexpensive that you can just like have on you, like just in case. I work with, other like self-defense groups and they have other tools that they use to like the Dragon Combat Club, they do like free weekly trainings like every week, but they're fans of like this, and they gave me this, which is like a tactical flashlight. It's like a metal flashlight. You can like use it to like blind like the person. Wow. And it's heavy, so you can also like use it in the same way as a Kubotan, and like there's like a clip on it, so you can like easily like grab it like out of your like backpack or pocket or something like that. But yeah, there's like a lot of things. But these three are my like core items. I have pepper spray too, but I'm not like a huge fan of it. I just have it because it's what people want. And listen, like, I'll give it to you if you want it because I'm not a fan of it just because if the wind blows towards you, you can't use it. If you're like inside a train car or a bus, you can't use it. And a lot of attacks happen in trains. So, I don't personally carry pepper spray with me, but
those are the tools for self-defense, right? Just out of curiosity, in New York City, do you think the laws and punishments in place are enough to keep women safe as well? Because I'm asking because, for example, where I live currently in Hong Kong, there's currently no law against stalking. Law enforcement's usual response would be they can't do anything until someone is hurt. And it's illegal to carry self-defense items such as pepper spray as well. I mean, what's the situation there like in New York and in the States?
It's illegal to get pepper spray like shipped to you in New York.
Mm,
So a lot of people don't have access to it, but it's legal to carry. So like the workaround is like giving it away for free.
right.
Um, there's a perception that the Kubotan is like illegal, but I spoke with like Asian woman police officer who said like it's fine to carry. I don't think laws in America work because we have the law. It's illegal for them to do it. They still do it, man. Like nothing stops them. It's we're in a time right now. It's almost like lawlessness. It's just city's very dangerous right now,
Mm,
but it's a combination. It really started like after when the pandemic started, and it's like uh economic downturn. It's a lot of homeless, increase of drug use. Like it's just, and honestly, it's like apathetic police.
mm,
They can have like crimes committed right in front of them. They're not going to do anything about it. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, and it's like sad because it's like we have to do it volunteer. We're not getting paid, but like we're the ones who keep us safe as like ourselves, you know. It's a very messy problem that we have of solving, that the government it's going to be hard for them to tackle. And like as a citizen, I don't have like full faith in them like being able to solve it, but it has to be. Someone asked me in another interview, it's like, oh, how do you like solve, like how do you stop Asian hate? I'm like, um get rid of capitalism. Like, and and like us competing against each other, and poverty that like breeds a lot of violence when people just like they have nothing to lose, you know. It's just this random like violence like on the street, like it's just there's so much of it. I work with this group too called They Can't Burn Us All
mm.
in New York, TCBUA. They do these subway patrols, and they go a lot to this station in Grand Street in Chinatown. And like when I went like 2 weeks ago, this guy, like one of the volunteers, like passed by a Asian guy who was assaulted and bleeding on the floor, and it's just so, was it on the news? Only the people like who saw it like knew about it. Bunch of people were there watching and not helping, you know, and that's just like how like chaotic like New York City can be. It's very important that
Yeah.
the work that we do, that it reaches people, because it's bad out there.
And what are some of the useful tips if you could share with our listeners? How can they protect themselves when dealing with these kind of different hostile situations and surprise attacks? And the other aspect is, as bystanders, what can they do?
Yeah. So you're saying if you're a victim, like, and someone randomly attacks you, best thing that you can do happens before that happens, which is taking self-defense class, like as many as you can. And if you carry tools, is familiarizing yourself with them. So like practicing, like drawing it, like practicing using it. You don't want like your first time like using any of this stuff like be when you get attacked. Like you want to, it's just like any tool like that you have at your house, you want to be able to be pretty well versed in it. If you're not like a screamer, practice screaming no. Like as stupid as that sounds, like you don't know if you're going to clam up like when that happens. And for bystanders, there's bystander training. There's this group called Right to Be, they in New York, and they offer free bystander training, and you could probably like look it up on the internet and get the slideshow from them. But they have like these tools that you can use to deflate the situation, um, where you're like, talking to the victim, attending to the victim, or you're ignoring the perpetrator, or all these different situations where it's like, if it's in a supermarket, you like get the manager, or if you have your cell phone ready, you start recording. All these things are like really powerful, because it's stupid that like, but it's true. It's just how politics work. It's like, there's not going to be attention on the issue unless like someone sees something like sensational, like on a video or a photo. So it's really important that you like if you could also like document these things that are happening, just so there's more attention on it. Because this is how I feel anyway. There's a lot of attention on like anti-Asian racism when these two murders happened in New York City beginning of this year. And then it just kind of slowly, like, people are just like going on with their lives. And like I said before, like, I was mailing out like 500 at a clip. Now it's like 30, but it's like people get referred to me because they're like, I got attacked yesterday and I need tools. So, of course, like, we're going to be there for those people. Like, we don't forget, because it's our community, right? That like this stuff is happening. But all in all, like, the best thing to do is just to educate yourself on like what to do. Same thing with like when I was talking about the subway, like, watch the video I made, or like do research on like, what are the safety things like in a station? What would you do in a bus? What would you do in whatever like scenario you're often in? Like, you have to like we do in the fire department, where we like drill for like worst case scenarios, and we practice. This is the same thing. It's like you're just drilling for like, like these horrible situations you might find yourself in. Hopefully you won't be.
Yeah. I mean, these are all the issues that are so heavy, which makes it a bit harder for me to move on to the next segment. But it's time for us to move on to the next segment, which is called Rapid Bias. And in this segment, I'll be asking my guests biased questions they've got asked at some point in life. And in this case, it would be some questions that Sarinya also gets asked when she's doing work for Angry Asian Women. So, Sarinya, are you ready for all the questions that will be coming your way?
Oh, no, but okay. But yes.
All right, let's go. First question. Where are you really from?
I don't really like answer people who say stuff like that to me. I'm like, what are you, stupid? I'm from New York.
That's a good one. And next up, you speak really good English for an Asian.
I got to, if someone said that to me, that's what I would do. I'd just be like, because I'm like, you really think that this day and age in 2022, you really freaking think that? Like,
exactly. The next one is, you work as a firefighter. That job is not for women.
Well, I've been doing it for like a long ass time, and there have been women in the fire service since the 1800s. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I you know what I get a lot? Like, especially in the beginning of my career, I got like guys asking me if I like took the same test as the other men, like, all the time. So weird. Like, I got an easier test. And I'm like, why do you even care? You'll never see me ever again, like, in New York City, I'm like, why do you care?
And the next one is, go back to your country.
So I'll tell you a funny story about that. I did get told that once. So sometime, like, my old area in the East Village, we had a lot of homeless people there. So they became our regulars. They would call 911 all the time, and this guy, he was psychotic. He was so abusive to us. And he had like no legs, and he would like, wheelchair, always like poop in his pants, poop in his wheelchair. It'll be just like this thick cake. Oh, it's so disgusting. And so he was like Dunkin' Donuts. He would always do it at Dunkin' Donuts too. It's so nasty. And so they would call us and be like, get this guy out of here. But he hated women. So anytime he saw me, it would I had no idea, like, something in his brain would set off. He would like start screaming at me. So like I stopped like doing patient care with him. I was like, whatever. But so like the last time he did that, he saw me and he was like, you nothing but a Chinese Korean bitch. Like, he just said that over and over again. He's like, go back to your own country. You don't belong here. And I was like, I'll go back to my own country as soon as you stop shitting in your wheelchair. I was like, you can't do it? Well, I'm going to stay here.
Oh. Oh my God.
I'm like, get out of here, bro. Like, stop.
Oh dear. Oh dear. And the last question is, handing out self-defense kits is useless. Women should all carry guns.
Sure, we're going to start the free gun program in New York City. Why not? That'll help the situation. Like, get these women strapped up. I mean, like, you know, I got a lot of those comments on my Instagram when my post blew up. And it was just like, do you not even understand how strict the gun laws are in New York City, and that, like, not everyone can just legally carry a gun? And the just stupidity of just, like, once you have a gun, you have to go to the gun range and you have to practice. And there's there's very few gun ranges in New York City. Like, you have to go to Jersey to, like, if you want to shoot a gun. It's just like, it's such a, like, barrier. Like, it's just like, so, like, anyway, like, women are worried about carrying Couboutons because they're worried about, like, hurting their perpetrators. What would they think if they, like, killed them with a gun? Like, crazy.
Well, thank you for answering all these biased questions in Rapid Fire, Sarinya. Now, to wrap up the episodes, for those who want to support the work that you do, you know, what are the ways for them to get involved or to find you guys?
Yeah, so it's Angry Asian Women on Instagram, and women spell WOMXN, to be inclusive of our friends who are non-binary or who are just don't identify as, like, women. But, like, yeah, we're gender inclusive. All of Asian Pacific Islanders are included in our, like, mission. So yeah, follow me on Instagram. We, in addition to the self-defense kits, we just did a huge event last week called Channel Your Rage, which was a day of healing for Asian Pacific Islander women and femmes. Going back to our conversation about mental health and self-care, I thought that was really important for us to come together. It was a super magical experience of being just around, like, API women and femmes and supporting one another and doing fun things, learning about self-defense together. It goes hand in hand. So we do events. So yeah, follow us on Instagram. And if you want to donate to the cause, go on my Instagram and go to my link tree, and you can find ways to donate there.
Nice. I really hope that next time, whenever you do an event, I'll be able to stop by.
That would be amazing.
Because it sounds like a really great event.
Yeah, it was really, really good. And a lot of people, like, who went said that they've never been in a space like that before. Myself included. You know, like I said, I've been in, like, all women's spaces before, but nothing like this. So it's really incredible, and I'm looking forward to do more things like this and have you too.
Yes.
Next time you're in New York.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'll be there.
Tactical flashlight. Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, last question for you, Sarinya. What does it mean to you to be proudly Asian American?
Oh, you know, it means so much to me because I see so many people in America who are ashamed of being Asian, and it's only due to, like, racism. And there's so much to be proud of our cultures. Like, we've contributed so much to this world, and we continue to do so. We're really all just amazing people. Speak more than one language, and that's a superpower in and of itself. You know, and understand multiple cultures, and we can, like, decipher things. Like, we're amazing people. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm proud to be Asian.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that. And thank you so much for the work that you do in terms of keeping people and women in New York City safe. Thanks for joining us, Sarinya.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thanks for creating this amazing platform to tell our stories. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
That's it for this episode of Proudly Asian. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at proudly.asian for more content. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in and signing off for now. I'm Isabel Wong.